I think we're recording.
All right.
Dan.
Welcome to Hat Guys Talk Books. Jay.
Hat Guys Talk Books. I am J.R. Murdoch. Find more about me at jrmurdoch.com.
And I am J. Daniel Sawyer. Find more about me at www.jdsawyer.net.
Does anybody really say www anymore?
Maybe not, but I've been around since before the internet. So
I remember when people got tired of doing www and would say dub. And I'm like,
yeah, I was like, come on, guys.
I know. It's like, just leave it off. I mean, at that point, just
Leave
get the eraser out.
jdsawyer.net.
Thank you. I feel better about that now. Messing with my head. It's 1996 again.
Well, you know, they were better times.
Speaking of better times.
Yeah, speaking of 1996, it was 97. That was the year we lost our subject of the day.
I don't see it. Let me see if I have it.
Okay. There you go. Today we're talking about Douglas Adams.
I was going to say, I know so many people that know the answer to life, the meaning in the universe is everything is 42. Mm-hmm. My favorite daughter told me that one time. I asked my teacher something. He said, the answer to everything you want to know is 42. She was like, I don't understand. And I'm like,
read this book, listen to this radio drama.
Sweet child of mine, sit down, let me tell you a story. Mm-hmm. of deep thought.
Yes. Once upon a time, there was a bulldozer.
Douglas Adams.
Douglas Adams, perhaps the finest philosophical writer of the 20th century. And I'm not joking.
I would have to concur. His writing, if you take it at face value, is frickin' hilarious.
Yes.
If you read between the humor and you really get into what he's talking about,
it is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, both the book and the radio drama series, which, by the way, if you haven't heard it, you must. It was where it came
first
from.
It came first. I didn't realize that. I read the entire 5-book trilogy before I realized there was an audio drama out there.
Yep.
My apologies. Go ahead.
Incredible. Anyway, they are basically an introduction to every single school of philosophy that has ever existed. John Lloyd, who helped Douglas co-write a couple of places where he was stuck, said recently on an interview with Rebel Wisdom, he said, the thing about Douglas writing that at the time was he was 23, 24 years old, and he knew all the questions, and he had no idea of the answers. And so he decided just to play with the questions. And that makes these books something utterly sublime. They're a way, if you let them sink in, they crack the universe open for you. They give you a vocabulary with which to explore meaning. And it's fantastic.
I really believe that Deep Thought was a play on Asimov's Foundation series.
Yeah.
It was really like, hey, let's take this in a different direction. Instead of giving people, here's all the answers you wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
well, what's the question?
Yes, for those of you who haven't read or heard, and if you've watched the American film adaptation, you have neither read nor heard. It's terrible.
Not the same.
The Deep Thought was constructed by a race of hyper-intelligent pan-dimensional beings who eventually realized there must be more to the universe than playing Brockian Ultra Cricket, which is a curious game that involved suddenly hitting someone on the head and running away for no readily apparent reason. They built a gigantic supercomputer called Deep Thought, and they charged him with uncovering the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. 7.5 billion years later, million years later, he comes back and says that the answer is 42, which confuses the hell out of them. And he says, the problem is you never asked me what the actual question was. And so they built another computer to discover the ultimate question. And unfortunately, it got demolished at the critical moment of readout in order to make way for a hyperspace express route.
Yes.
Thus leaving everybody in the dark. But yeah, by bureaucracy, of course.
Of course.
But it's I mean, it's full of wonderful lines like, "Listen, Three Eyes, don't you try to outweird me. I get stranger things than you free with my breakfast cereal." Um,
I still like Zaphod Beezelbrox. It's time to meet the meat. Um,
yes.
and the, the cow being comes out and, can I interest you in some nice hind steak?
Yep.
And the one earthling at the table is completely horrified, and Zaphod's busy sharpening his knife, like, do you want me to eat something that doesn't want to be eaten? How horrible would that be?
Yep.
And that's what got me thinking, well, wait,
He
was
says
Douglas Adams a vegan?
what if I have a salad? Oh my son, I know many vegetables who would feel quite strongly about that.
Oh, oh, I mean, so many little things, even with oh gosh, what was the robot's name? Oh,
Marvin, the paranoid
Marvin.
android.
Marvin, the paranoid android, who got left as they traveled to the end of time, and
Hmm.
he's still standing there at the valet waiting for them to come back.
Yep.
Oh, I knew
So
you'd eventually
wonderful.
come back around.
Yep. Or the planet Brontator, where civilization has been collapsed by a economic cycle driven by cheap shoes. Uh,
Oh,
which,
just
which ironically is a fantastic sketch out of the collapse of a hyper consumerist economy. It's wonderfully done. Everything in there is
oh
just
yeah.
incredible.
And as I said, you can read his books on so many different levels, and if you just take them at face value, they're freaking hilarious. I
Yep. My
mean,
favorite.
the
Yep.
whale in the plant
Uh
descending,
huh.
and the
Yes.
whale having this entire running monologue all the way down, and the plant, not again.
Yep.
I mean,
And then 3 books later, you actually meet the plant in another
yes,
incarnation, and you find out what that was all about.
yes,
And it's
yes.
even weirder than you could possibly imagine.
You're like, well, wait. Oh,
Oh, have you?
it's one of those series of books you just can't recommend enough. I mean, don't.
Yeah,
I wish I had a
and
towel here handy. It'd be,
what a he was also responsible for some of the best Doctor Who ever made during the Tom Baker years. He was the showrunner for 2 years.
yes, which a lot of
Um,
people don't know.
hmm
There's so
He
much that he did outside of writing.
he wrote several sketches for the final season of Monty Python's Flying Circus, and actually has a cameo in that series.
I didn't know he had a cameo.
Yeah, yeah,
I knew
and
he
it's
wrote some Monty Python,
in
but I
the
didn't know he had
final
a cameo.
episode. He's the big woman who brings a tactical nuclear missile out of a house and puts it on a weapons collection cart.
Oh my god.
Um, oh man,
I'm gonna have to go track that one down now.
yeah. Have you ever read his Dirk Gently books?
Yes. Oh, dirt. Oh my god.
Oh, I was
That's a completely, you
completely different
read
thing.
the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books, and you're like, oh, Dirk Gently, yeah, this has got to be. No, no, no. It is
Very
a
different.
departure, a very drastic departure from the
Yeah,
Hitchhiker's Guide.
I read the first Dirk Gently book and I didn't like it. I didn't get it. And then someone who knew that I was a big fan of Douglas Adams got me the audiobook read by Douglas Adams for my birthday. And so I felt obligated to listen to it. And I listened to it and suddenly something twigged. And so I listened to it again and I listened to it, I think, about 700 times,
Wow.
because there's something very deep going on there. And what I figured
Yes.
out finally that's going on is the entire book is beneath some wonderful humor, is an exploration of the relationship between chaos theory and music and the structure of the universe. And the book is structured in a fractal fashion, and it is achingly beautiful, absolutely achingly beautiful.
I
The
had to
follow-up,
I had to click away because I thought I remembered that there was a television series.
it was terrible. There were 2 television series, they both sucked. They were awful.
Yeah, 2016, 2017. I remember it being okay if you knew nothing about the books.
Right.
It was your typical
It was
high
just a zany
action,
sitcom, yeah.
yeah, high hilarity, just keep everything moving forward versus what Dirk Gently was actually about. I remember watching it and going,
Yep.
well, this is entertaining, but this doesn't seem anything like what I read.
No,
Um,
and the book has 2 or 3 passages towards the end that just move you to tears from the sheer beauty of what he's talking about. It's just fantastic. It's one of the few, after having read Heinlein's trilogy of bootstrap stories, by his bootstraps, All You Zombies and The Door into Summer, you figure that they're so tight that it's impossible to do a time paradox that works, that comes anywhere near. And Dirk gently pulls it off by going a different direction. And it is the fourth perfect time travel story um, that I've run into in my life. And I can't recommend it enough. The follow up is also very good, but it goes into completely different thematic territory about the relationship between consciousness and religion and all sorts of fun stuff like that. And if you ever read Neil Gaiman's American Gods, it's
oh
actually
yes.
a serious, it's like a non-humorous rewrite of The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, which evidently Neil did with Douglas's permission. Neil also, his first published book was the biography of Douglas Adams, um, which is also worth reading.
Neil's first book was Duran Duran.
Oh, sorry, you're right. His second book
The
was the
second book,
biography of Douglas Adams.
because
Yep.
that's what he was doing, biography type material before he started writing. Yeah.
Yep.
I tried to find one of those Duran Duran books. That no, you're not getting those for less than $1,000.
Yeah, the
Um,
biography is also hard to find. At least it was last time I looked, but I picked it up for 50 cents in a used bookstore, and it is
oh
wonderful.
dang,
Absolutely
I
wonderful.
I am extremely jealous. We will definitely have to cover Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett one of these days.
Mm,
Um, just because of the dichotomy of them working on Good Omens, and the
yep.
fact that people are like, wow, that was so funny, Terry, that chapter you wrote was so hilarious. And he's like, well, thank you. Neil, did you want to respond to that chapter you wrote?
Yep.
Because it was Terry Pratchett's chance to get out of. Anyway, we'll cover all
Yeah.
that another time. And it was Neil's time to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
But no, both of those have very wide libraries as well. But back to Douglas Adams,
Oh man. Yeah.
one of the few books of his I haven't read was um was it the House of Lif?
The Meaning of Lif.
The Meaning
He
of
wrote with
Lif.
John Lloyd. Yes.
Yes.
There's two of them. There's The Meaning of Lif and More on the Meaning of Lif, I think it was. And it's basically like it's like a latter 20th century British version of Ambrose Bierce's The Devil's Dictionary.
Haven't read that one either.
Have you gotten in? Have you read much Bierce?
No,
Oh,
I
he's
have not.
amazing, an
This is
amazing
why I
American
love us
writer.
doing this type of thing, is I'm learning new
Amazing
authors and
American
new things
writer.
to read.
Ambrose Bierce, Stephen Crane, and a couple others in that era Henry defined what an American short story is and how it works. And Bierce was astonishing. He was a brutal satirist. Imagine H.L. Mencken, but in fiction form. Is
Okay, now I've got a third I got to go look up.
Yeah.
You're covering territory I never covered. Um,
mm,
I was very much
Great
into the
stuff.
sci-fi fantasy and a couple of ancillary books that fell on the sides of those.
Yep. I ran into Bierce through sci-fi fantasy because he did satirical horror. And I got to him through Stephen Crane, who did, in addition to things like Heart of Darkness, he did a lot of horror poetry, um, such as there was one called "The Eater," about a man who's a naked bestial man who's crouching on a street corner eating a heart, and the passerby asks him, what is it? How does it taste? He says, "It is my heart, and it is bitter, and I love it because it is bitter, and I love it because it is my heart."
Okay.
Oh, Crane did a lot of stuff like that. Just these little short stories that rip your guts out. They're little short poems that rip your guts out. They're amazing.
Guts, a short story you'll have to go read or listen to the
Oh
presentation
yes,
of
I read
sometime.
that when it was first published in Playboy by Pollinek.
Oh,
There's another guy we got to do is Pollinek.
yes. I caught a reading of it because there's a reading of it on YouTube of him reading that story. And oh my God, I lost it. Anyway, complete segue. Anytime I hear Guts, I think about that short
Yep.
story and I'm like, oh, no, 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 the
But
M&M.
yeah, there's a reason that Douglas Adams connects thematically to all these other writers, because he's doing in a humorous way what all the rest of them do in dark ways.
Yes.
And it's it's a great gateway drug into deeply resonant and meaningful fiction and thought. And it's also a wonderful way to laugh at the absurdity of deeply wonderful and meaningful thought. Laugh at yourself for the complete limitedness of human consciousness. And sometimes you have to laugh, and it's beautiful.
I've heard Douglas Adams called one of the greatest 20th century philosophers of all time
Oh yeah, I
because
absolutely agree.
and as I said, it's one of those things that I read the whole 5 book trilogy
Mm-hmm.
and loved them all. And
Mm-hmm.
then once somebody told me that, I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I had read them at a young age and I'd read them just on the surface. Like I said, 42, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like turning it up to 11. I get it. But when somebody told me that, that's when I went back and I reread the first 3 of the 5 books.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's one of those where when you stop laughing and you start to really dig in and you're like I said, when you get to that meet the meat moment and it's like,
Uh-huh.
it's hilarious, but then you're like, wait, it is kind of unethical to eat something that don't want to be eaten. They don't want to be eaten. They want to go out there and play ball, roam in a field and just eat grass all day. It's like, wow, that's deep. And then you, like I said, you start digging into Marvin and
Mm-hmm.
some of his storyline, and you're like, I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of see where he's coming from.
Oh, and the way he dies finally,
Yes.
looking at God's last message to humanity.
Yeah, at the end of time.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. On the Quentilus Quasgar Mountains, burned in 30-foot tall letters of fire. But the real first giveaway though is in it's like in the first to the second episode of the radio drama, which will make it in chapter 2 or 3 of the book, when he introduces the Babelfish, which has been he says is you stick it in your ear, it translates everything that's said to you in any form of language because it feeds from the brainwave matrix. And it's so unbelievable that such a creature would evolve purely by chance that it's been used as a final and clinching proof by philosophers for the non-existence of God. The argument goes something like this. I refuse to prove that I exist, says God, for proof denies faith, and without faith I am nothing. But, says man, the Babelfish is a dead giveaway, isn't it? It proves you exist, and so therefore you don't.
And God ceased to exist.
And God vanishes in a puff of logic, and then man goes on to prove that black is white and gets killed in the next crosswalk. Or my favorite part of the whole series, is the story of the Hoglarunians. This race that lives in a small and fairly crowded nut tree on the planet Hoglaroon. They spend their entire life in this nut tree, carving tiny where they live, make love, and die, except strapped to the less accessible portions of the outer branches, carving tiny speculative articles into the tree about the meaning of life, the futility of death, and the importance of birth control. And the only ones who are ever thrown out of the tree are those who leave the tree, are those who are thrown out for the heinous crime of speculating whether any of the other trees in the forest might be capable of supporting life, or in fact are anything other than hallucinations brought on by eating too many hogla nuts. And he finishes this little parable off by saying, as exotic as this behavior may seem, there is no being in existence who is not in some way guilty of exactly the same thing.
Yep. And it's one of those, like we keep saying, on the surface, when you're reading the book, you're like, oh, that's funny. Then you're like, wait a second,
Mm-hmm.
that's really applicable.
Yep.
Very much so. uh
Yeah, at at the risk of turning people off, he writes in parables. The Hitchhiker's Guide and in a different way, the Dirk Gently books, they read like scripture in the best possible ways.
yes, and that's what I was going to say, is that the fun thing about reading his books is, yes, there's a story, but the story isn't told in a straight linear fashion. It's
Mm-hmm.
told with the character doing something and then an anecdote, and then the
Yep.
character does something and there's another anecdote.
Yep. The
And
narrator is as much a character as any of the characters that serve
100%,
for the action.
the pages upon pages pontificating about the awfulness of Vogon poetry. And when he doesn't,
Yes.
and all he has to do is take out the babelfish, he's like, oh, well, this isn't a problem. Oh no, didn't he actually enjoy it?
No,
He
he
actually, like,
pretended to enjoy it.
yes.
Yeah, he pretended to
Right.
enjoy it, and the Vogon was so infuriated that he threw him off the ship into deep space.
Oh, good times, good times. Yeah, definitely. For those who have heard any of the references to life, the meaning, the universe, the life, the universe, and everything, and
Yep.
so long, and thanks for all the fish and
And
all
you've
the
got to know
different.
where your towel is.
Yeah, always have your towel handy. If you're looking for the, go look in the basement of the town hall downtown. That's where the plans are, and they've been
Yep.
there all this time, and it's your fault for not going and looking at them.
I found them on a display in a locked filing cabinet stuck in a disused lavatory in the basement with a sign on the door saying, "Beware of the leopard."
Yeah, yep. Oh, you gotta love just the little nudges. It's like, yep,
Yep.
definitely Douglas Adams is another one of those authors that's just, he's a multi-layered author, and I wish I could have met him, but he passed
too.
away far too young.
And suddenly, like, he was on his way home from working out at the gym and he just had a heart attack.
Yes, and it was just, that was it.
Yep.
Absolutely
And
horrible.
and the Salmon of Doubt, he left these two partially completed novels, one Hitchhiker's novel, one Dirk Gently novel, that starts melding into each other, but it's got no ending. And I'm like, oh, I wish he'd been able to finish it.
Oh, that'd be like reading Tolkien's unfinished tales. I don't know how people read those, because they're so frustrating. Because it's like,
but the Salmon of Doubt,
no!
the Salmon of Doubt also has a lot of short stories he never published, including several written with Terry Jones.
Oh god.
Of Monty Python. Oh, that's another one. Starship Titanic, written with Terry Jones of Monty Python.
Oh god, I know.
Loads of
Now
fun.
that you said that, I know I've heard of it, but I never read that one. Oh gosh.
But yeah, the short stories in the Salmon of Doubt are all just delightful.
I'm gonna
They're
have to go
wonderful.
digging into that one. I think that's another one I haven't read. But yeah, Starship Titanic, completely forgot that one. Gonna have to go find that one. That's why we do these, for
Yep.
us to find stuff and help other people find stuff. Well, Dan, I've been Jay.
Okay. I've been Dan.
It's been great talking to you again. You can find more about me
Indeed.
at jrmurdoch.com.
Find more about me at jdsawyer.net.
Everyone,
And
thank you so
we'll
much
see
for
you guys
joining
next
us.
time. Yeah.
Yep. Until next time.